Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. My name's Richard Miller. I'm one of the hosts, and my co-host spent the second half with his head buried in a thesaurus, so hopefully this podcast won't devolve into an hour of us just yelling awful, awful, awful at each other. Your friend and mine, Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm all right. I don't know if that's going to save me from just shouting awful and awful, awful and awful and awful over and over again. I do need to apologise. I've come down with cold, fever, flu bug, whatever it is. So I'm a little bit hoarse today.
It's time for sexy Dr. Luke. Soothing your pains with his deep, deep tones.
Oh, dear.
Did Lewis Holtby hurt you? Luke will make it better.
Oh, and we've recorded episode 28.
We've got to try and find some, light in these dark times. I think we should just, the main feast of the day is obviously digging into the performance at Hillsborough. But before we do that, we should look at the week that was.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
Breaking hoo-hoos for this week. We saw one incoming player and one outgoing player. So Ash Baker headed back to the Valleys and joined up with Newport County on a permanent deal. It's interesting because he's sort of been around the matchday squad a few times of late, but obviously I thought he was on the bench a couple of times recently.
I don't think he's made the 18 for quite a while.
Okay. Maybe I'm making things up. He's yes. Well, he's racked up some first team appearances, but then obviously maybe it's a long time since he has. So yeah, he's been shuffled along, and then in the other direction, we've brought in Manuel Hidalgo. So I've just put good name, okay YouTube content, because there's a couple of quite meaty highlight packages of his last couple of seasons, but there's a lot of, you're kind of looking at a couple of clips per game, and even some of those are kind of like some misses, some passes that don't work out. But he looks tricky. He looks quite pacey. So the initial plan is for him to be involved in the under-23s, but I wonder if we'll see some first team appearances from him at any point.
It's interesting. I think we've definitely got. I find it interesting, especially with Urigide coming into the first team picture, especially since I think historically Monk has not been known as someone who favours youth particularly.
Okay, yeah.
And so, but it's interesting to see that, and then maybe that's a kind of stepping stone and gives a player like Hidalgo like the opportunity to show that he can actually prove himself at like a first team level. So yeah, it is interesting. I think it's interesting. What is it? It's an 18-month deal basically. So he's signed until the end of next season, and I believe that there's a 15% sell-on clause.
Oh, okay.
Of the signing. So it's something that, that's interesting. Is that something? It's probably obviously set up by his parent club. But
so when he goes to Newport County for an undisclosed fee, half of that fee is going to
15% of the 50 grand we will sell for Newport County,
and almost all of the bag of Monster Munch.
Oh wow! You may as well just give him the entire bag of Monster Munch at that point.
Well, they are pickled onion though, so even one little sniff of that pickled onion. Monster Munch is worth clinging on to, I think. I'm glad we stood our ground.
Maybe that's why Gary Monk looks so coy every week.
Oh,
he's the
cat who got the Monster Munch.
He's a little sniff of the packet. I would be, especially we'll get on to the performance in our seeming review of the unreviewable. But I wondered whether he would be hyperventilating into that Monster Munch bag after tonight's performance.
Yeah, or at half-time, maybe.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we shouldn't dawdle really. We can get into that business.
Okay.
So
Okay. Well, I'm just chomping at the bit to get started on that, Rich.
in some ways, I'm sure you are. In other ways, it's a dread as well. It's so we played Blackburn Rovers today. We named an unchanged lineup to the team that had gone to a very difficult Elland Road. Nobody had won at Elland Road since August. Sheffield Wednesday went there and did it, and quite understandably named an unchanged team for the next game. And, the results were exactly the same. We got a same sort of gritty, hard-working performance rewarded with the goals at the end of the game. That's what happened, wasn't it?
I really hate to break this to you, Rich, but it wasn't good today.
It wasn't good.
No.
So
I do want to say I thought it was interesting looking at the lineup. I guess we're going back to this again. Where I think this is going to be the key to. This is probably going to be the key to, outside of us shouting "awful, awful, awful" at each other. Kind of like Statler and Waldorf in a broken record kind of formation, I imagine.
Statler and Waldorf, the remix.
Yeah. So, again, it was interesting looking and think about how basically Monk has conceded that New is basically a super sub. Maybe,
yeah.
So it was interesting to see that and then think again, I was kind of hoping for something from Winall today. But I put intrigued again how Winall will do, knowing that last time it was the late show with Andy New. That's his famous chat show, also known as Big Nights with Big Dave as well. That's another working title. But that was the interesting thing. It's just basically it seemed again that this seems to be our only kind of formation right now. Now that Fletcher is out the picture, this is the best that we can muster.
Yeah.
This is the best for a plan A. There's not even any kind of great invite to look into a plan B that can set up. I mean, you probably need to work on a plan A before you work on a plan B, realistically, right?
That's generally a good call. I think it's one of those, I wonder with Winall, because we have this thing, you don't drop, generally people don't like to drop players when the team has won. But then when it's a game like that Leeds game, where it was one game with Winall on the pitch, and it was another game once he left the pitch, and one of those games we drew, and the other one of those games we won. That's where I think you could make an exception, couldn't you, and break that first team that started, because Winall wouldn't have had the involvement that New had in a month of Sundays. He could have played Leeds 10 times and not had the impact that New had in his sort of 20-minute cameo.
Yeah, I'm also wondering as well, we're going back to me saying the other week, last week's podcast, to talking about, I'd almost rather we went to a 4-6-0. Because we seemingly have more better options in midfield than we do up front. And it never really works with a one up top by themselves anyway. So if we're wasting a player in a position, surely we could just bring in someone else. I don't know.
I know. But then at home, it is hard because people, if you started at home with no striker and maybe produced similar sort of results, you'd never hear the end of it. If we'd lost that game 5-0.
Right. So in that case, then, do you almost want to go the other way and basically just play a 4-4-2?
I don't know. There's no. I mean, we went through this in great detail last week, though. There's really no good options up top for us.
No, there isn't.
All various
degrees of poorness. Yeah.
We've got 50 shades of terrible strikers is what we have in the different combinations, the different ways you play it around. I mean, you cannot make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and what we have is 3 sow's ears, and we're stuck until we can bring somebody in. It's going to be miserable in terms of the striking situation.
It is, but that's largely where we bank on. That's largely when naturally with any team banks on any goals coming in. It's from the strike force. That's what they're there to do. They're there to put the ball in the onion bag. So, and this is just going to be a theme that we get into with talking about the game today, but just where are we going to score goals?
Yeah. How far away can Borukov be from a first team footballer?
That's a good question. Well,
considering the relative gifts of the ones that we have already.
So I don't really want to talk too much about this, but going back to
No.
kind of breaking hoo-hoos, but, it seems to be we are very much... I feel like it's becoming like a Martin Scorsese, The Irishman length film about a number of championship clubs at a nightclub, basically, just desperately horny for a striker.
Just anything.
Just anything would do, and it is just tumbleweed city at the meat market, and it's a very long, protracted, drawn-out saga of teams looking around for this great striking hope. Again, it's that whole platitude of, oh, we're only, and this isn't for us. I don't think we're a team that's creating bags and bags of chances. But, you heard that kind of platitude with teams that simply stroke the ball around like, oh, we're just all we need is a 20-goal striker. That's all we need.
Yeah.
And then that's the difference. I'm like, well, that's the difference for everybody. And that's 20-goal season strikers are, impeccably difficult to find.
Oh, yeah.
In this wasteland. But I'm almost getting to the point, and I know there's a lot of gamesmanship and there's a lot of who blinks first, and we will bring in someone by the end of this window. I guess the difficult thing now is it's taking some really interesting turns. That basically Eddie Nketiah, basically said he's going to stay, or Arsenal decided he's going to stay at the club. He actually came on against the Pigs today, and then for a little twist in the turn as well. I don't know if you saw this, Rich, but Connor Wickham came on and had a part to play in the equalising goal against Man City today for Crystal Palace. So it's really looking very strange. I think I heard something, I don't know if that's just happening, but things that we've missed out on. We missed out on Brewster going to Swansea. There seems to be the Swansea-Liverpool connection, thanks to the Swansea City manager. So that's done. What else is happening? Jonathan Kodjia.
Oh, yeah.
Seemingly looking like he's going to Qatar.
Wow.
By the sound of things. And he would be someone who I would have thought we would have been in for. Forest seemed to be batting their eyelashes in that direction, but that's not seems to have come off. So, yeah, it's just, who is that? And I'm almost getting to the point where I'd almost genuinely think just anybody would be better than the options we have.
Well, that's the thing. You're talking about a 20-goal a season striker, and at the moment, a 10-goal a season striker would be unbelievably good for us.
I also wonder as well, we seemingly have a scouting network. We seemingly now have a lot more of a scouting network and scouting personnel than I've known at the club for a fair amount of time, I want to say.
Yeah.
Even if we're still under some degree of a influence maybe from agents, I just feel that there must be some players that we can find in this situation.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Yeah.
That would be hope so. And I'd really imagine that this is the thing. We're always playing this game. We're always playing this game as Wednesday. We're just waiting to the last minute to get that kind of slight mild advantage on a deal.
But then, as you say, it just feels like we've been in this...
We're constantly playing this. We're constantly playing this game of just...
And we've really...
painfully sitting on our hands while we watch games and situations pass us by, where maybe a different player would be the difference. And maybe a bit of fresh blood, like this introduction we've seen the past two games with Urgahide, gives everyone a bit of a boost, changes things up a little bit, and it's just not happening. I'm just wondering as well, I think anybody would be a welcome addition, because realistically, I think we've written off the set of strikers hugely. I still think that going into out of contract, I don't mind a player like Winall. I think Rhodes is a huge expense we can't afford to have. Ideally we should be seeing more from Sam Winall, but we don't see that. I like what we see of Andy New. I'd like to see it a bit more often. So I like having him as a fourth or fifth striker at the club. It's not ideal, but ideally we would still have better options than that. So we're still in this situation where Fletcher's injured. I don't know if that's going to be him done for his career at Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting situation to look at, considering he's probably one of the most highly paid players at the club.
He's going to have 5 or 6 games to show us what sort of fettle he's in, isn't he, at the end? And we'll see how that goes. But
and then we had that with Gary Hooper.
Yes.
I mean, Gary Hooper came back and probably looked like maybe he was going to stick around. So it was surprising to see him gone. We've also now got a situation of, do we ever class Fernando Forestier as a striker? We know he's a football player at times. He certainly isn't a winger. So what is he?
He could. I would say he would do a similar sort of role to Winall, probably a little bit better than Winall at this stage.
Yeah, but again, it's not particularly. It doesn't really make our panties wet, does it? With anticipation.
No, it doesn't. But this is unfortunately the situation we're in. I mean, they're all shockingly bad.
I'm genuinely getting to the point, and again, I'm maybe alongside Sheffield Wednesday in the nightclub, just getting seemingly desperate for any female attention at this point. But I would genuinely think at this point, I think if we bring in a proper target man, that would be markedly better than the options we have right now. Because Newu's not quite that, right?
He's just. It's the fact he's immobile is the biggest drawback. In some ways, he would be the best option because at least if you can count on him to a degree, which is a big question mark, but if you can guarantee a kind of low level of performance out of him every week, then his physicality lets us kind of build a platform in the game. You just got to then make sure the legs get in behind him and try and read his flick-ons, which nobody knows when he will win a flick-on, and nobody knows where it will go when he gets that flick-on because he has no idea. So you're asking those speedy players to somehow win the lottery with where they decide to run. But outside of that, he's the most natural fit. I can understand why we've gone for Winall, but it feels like we got away with it against Leeds, and today it just was all of the bad bits and none of the positives. Yeah.
So what you basically said about New Year is basically, like we said previously, it's the complete opposite from Fletcher. So this is the situation we're in. But I genuinely think that if we even had like an old kind of haggard battering ram of a striker, I think it'd be better going with that as the target man in a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
Rather than adding Nuyu, and I'd rather like to see Nuyu as this, the late show.
It was
the late show host that is Andy Nuyu.
Was it Howard we got at the end of his? I mean, he was so.
Yeah, I know, and I really hate myself for seeing this, but a player almost like Howard.
Yeah, but that's it. He was able to he knew what he was supposed to do and was just about fit and mobile enough to do it. And all you're really doing as that target man is trying to make the ball stay in the half a little bit longer.
Yeah. I'm feeling again like. But again, I'm almost feel like I'm maybe going to go into myself now. But basically, I think just anyone with we got two things basically. Like, we get a proven striker who's going to cost us big bucks to drop down, But it's looking like maybe the situation it's not going to happen. It's such a finite resource, and there's so many other clubs desperate for a player like that, and in the market for that as well. It's not just like we'd like that. Teams are actively looking for that striker.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. It's almost then a situation of thinking like we need to make a speculative punt on someone. So this character can be a few different versions. We could have two of them. We could have a player who has that pace, who is young, and we could have that one who's a target man. It doesn't matter what age that is. I'm just saying for that sense, maybe a sense of sense of wiliness and kind of, gamesmanship up front.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially looking at today was basically like so much of the time it wasn't working, pithing it around at the back and playing it short under such high pressure on a high press line from Blackburn. And I resent myself for being on a podcast, and I don't think that I'm the one who, out of the two of us, who has I think you have a much better read of the game than I do, Rich. And I feel like maybe it's kind of this panic in set from Hillsborough. But to a certain degree, I think actually just hoofing it long and playing it direct would be far more beneficial. And having someone who can actually try and be an outlet, because then we're just basically just pushing the play up the field. And we can get into this, but we didn't do that at all today. There was just zero threatening, zero possession or play in the opponent's half. It was staggering how bad it was.
Monk said in his post-game interview that we sort of turned down the opportunity to play in the half a couple of times as well.
I like that wording. That's
yeah. Well, it shows you where he's putting the onus on, doesn't it? He's not saying that they did so brilliantly to keep us out, but he's saying we turned round, we played it back, we played it square when we were given those opportunities. Right. So we have talked a lot about the strike. Hopefully we can cook up something striker wise, but it's really hard to see. Yeah. It's going to be a succession until we get somebody, if we don't get somebody, it'll just be this till Fletcher's back. It will be. I don't think we're going to happen upon a thing that works constantly. It will just be trying to come up with a new trick to get a chance or two out of the defence, out of the opposition every game, because there's just nothing there quality wise. We all three of those players have been tried up front on their own. All three of them have been tried in combination with each other. They've never worked in either of those roles. Apart from Nui on his own has been effective. That's the only thing that's worked really out of any of the Rhodes and Nui doesn't work. Rhodes and Winnall doesn't work. Rhodes on his own doesn't work. Winnall on his own doesn't work. The only thing that has ever worked is Nui on his own, and even that is like a 10% chance of it working, but that's the best percentage chance we have. So outside of that, you're looking at another person coming in, whether that's somebody from the existing squad or somebody from outside. But what I was saying about us being here before is it just feels like we've always been in this situation of looking for that striker and waiting. We will get someone, and that someone more often than not has not been somebody up to the task. David Graham, I'm thinking of Stevie May, Howard was one of those. There's just been so many, players drafted in to play that role. And so often they've just been terrible. And my worry is it just happens again. We rustle up some body from somewhere, and whether they're able to do the job, I just don't know. But then we know what the outcome is with the three strikers we have at the moment. So hoping for anything better out of them feels like madness.
It feels like a worse dice roll than getting someone new in, right?
Yeah. I thought I would be able to think of more useless strikers that we've brought in. Feeney?
Warren Feeney, who could remember, who could forget?
Who could remember is a good...
Who could remember, who could forget? I'm wondering if it's a kind of Schrodinger's box of remembering and forgetting with his 13 minutes. In a sense, who could forget it? But, also who could remember it as well at the same time? It's kind of both,
Absolutely. So let's look at the match itself. Let's do this in the kind of Clockwork Orange style. Let's matchstick open our eyeballs and force ourselves to take a long, hard look at the match that happened. So I have to hold my hands up. Apologies, and it seems like a good decision on the back of this, but I was in London yesterday evening seeing a musical concert performance, and was making my way back whilst the match was on. So I was listening to Radio Sheffield's commentary. I wasn't sure whether iFollow was having a bad time or whether it was just the Wi-Fi on the train being a bit patchy, but it was a struggle to follow. They seemed very, very, particularly far behind the actual action, and then in the second half it was really very juddery as well. But so that was my extent of following. You were able to follow along on the stream, which is something folks overseas are allowed to do, but not people in the UK. So how did we start? So the first thing that's marked on the timeline of the match is a yellow card for Julian Berner. But how did we start? How did we kick off, Luke?
Just kind of under the cosh, basically. Just seemingly not really having any great forward thinking or forward play.
Yeah.
Just under pressure from Blackburn. They were really getting at us. And yeah, we just looked so incredibly hesitant.
Right, yeah.
And cagey.
And you made a a note of just how much they were pressing. So that was right from the off. They were sort of in our faces, basically.
Yeah, and it was just an absolute onslaught from Blackburn. And we were very poor today. Blackburn were very good, and it was just insane. I wondered the nature of the championship. I mean, this is a huge result that nobody would have predicted.
No.
And
it's
just remarkable.
Sorry, it's our old friend again. After the Lord Mayor's show.
Yes.
I just wish Gary Monk and the team would listen to us, follow, walk under the banner with us of all Lord Mayor's show all the time. If it's always the Lord Mayor's show, there's never an after the Lord Mayor's show. This party never stops.
I really enjoy the bits, Rich, where you sound a little bit Jerry Seinfeld-esque. It's probably my favourite bits from our conversations.
Ding 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 ding. So there was the Burner yellow card,
which was very much a deserved yellow. And can we just get on to the
yes?
A lot of people have made a note about, and we'll talk about a little bit here, the referee, who's an Australian chap who was promoted from the Australian leagues to come over to the UK. Prior to this game, in 15 games, he'd given out 59 yellow cards. And the last game before this one, he'd given out 8 yellows.
Staggering. So
basically, he's rocking an average of about just under 4 yellow cards a game.
That is astonishing, isn't it? Really.
It is pretty staggering. So I wasn't surprised with the yellow for Burner was actually deserved. It was a pretty cynical one that we gave away. So that was the first kind of bit of action in the game, I should say.
There weren't many yellow cards this game, but I suppose we didn't get close enough to Blackburn to lay a glove on them most of the time. Considering his average must be up there at about 15 a game. Today he only handed out 2 and obviously a red card. So what did you think of his overall refereeing performance? We should cover the first goal because the first goal comes first. So we started badly, a justified yellow for Burner, and then 19th minute, Adam Armstrong, who just looked like he was a pain in our backside all game, sort of wriggled away from Urugide, and then Holtby finished up after a Dawson save, flap, pass. It wasn't good for Dawson.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of straight at him, could have caught it. It wasn't moving particularly fast, and he kind of palmed it into the middle of the goal, or very close to the middle of the box. So did you feel that was coming at that stage?
It was. I guess the interesting thing was that it wasn't a game where you look back and you think, oh, we've really, there's a lot of pressure and they're very dominant at that point, Blackburn, but really kind of, I didn't feel there's any great chances prior to that, I'll be honest. It looked worrisome, I was concerned about, because we didn't look like we had a handle on the game whatsoever.
But it could have just been one of those momentum swings in the game kind of thing.
A little bit. It didn't feel a little bit like we were talking about the game against Leeds last week, and
yes.
There were so many missed opportunities from Leeds in that game last week, and but it didn't feel like, hey, we've got so many clear-cut chances. I mean, the interesting thing was they're 3-0 at half-time. It's however whoever does the statistics at half-time, however they run that and rule that, basically they had 3 goals from 1 clear-cut chance.
Wow.
So it felt a little bit interesting. I remember there was a game, I think we were in League One. I think it might be in the promotion season or the year before the promotion season. We were away at MK Dons and we drew the game 1-1. And there wasn't one shot on target because basically both were own goals.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it just felt that... I mean, that's the interesting thing is I don't mean to jump ahead too much, Rich, but like those first 3 goals, they were all impeccably scrappy.
Very. Yeah, so the first one was a sort of Armstrong's pretty tame shot straight at Dawson, and then he did react very well to the palm out and headed it across for Holtby to slide home. The second one, it's a decent shot through a crowd of bodies. Dawson gets a good hand to it, which 99 times out of 100 probably tips it around the post or tips it to the post and bounces out. But this time it bounced off his head. And then that third one is just kind of like a bundle of bodies headed towards the goal, and again Armstrong picked out his man in that pile of players, and it's just a tap in, really, isn't it? What did you make of the sending off? It's a pivotal moment. It wasn't the be all and end all, and I think Monk was sort of at pains to say we weren't at the races before then. We can't blame the sending off. But what did you make of it?
It's interesting. I can really see this in two ways. Yeah. The more I look back at it, I'm still completely unsure. So I think it can go either way. And that sounds like I'm really sitting on the fence with this one. And it's a giant cop-out from what I'm saying. But then I don't know. I can also see why. So let's kind of JFK this. It's coming in, and who's the Blackburn player who kind of slides to kind of clear the ball?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Was it Travis?
I think so. Yeah, Lewis Travis. And so he clears it. So basically, Luongo's running into it. So he doesn't. He kind of comes out of the challenge fully.
Yeah.
But the question really is does he leave his boot in? And I think with the slides, I'm going to say I think he does.
I know. I think it looked fairly innocuous, full pelt. So I think if I was at the match, I'd be saying that's never a yellow. It may be a yellow, but never a red. But I think it's one of those that looks particularly bad when you watch it back in slow motion, because it's an unnecessary. He doesn't need to make any contact with him. He's so late, really. The ball is long gone by the time Luongo gets there. And the fact he makes any contact at all makes you think, well, that's an unnecessary thing he's chosen to do there. And then it becomes varying degrees of how bad was what he did. Because I think from some angles it looks like he just sort of hoofed his lead leg, which would have been fairly natural as part of the contact. And that was the one that Travis was rolling around holding, but it also looks a little bit like he kind of caught his trailing leg as well, and I think that's what the referee was kind of saying was a stomp, or a stamp. What's the difference between a stomp and a stamp? Is there one?
I don't think it came up in my study of the thesaurus earlier on, so
you didn't get that far.
I did not know.
But I can absolutely see why the referee's given it. I have no confidence that it's going to get overturned, and it feels like another chapter in the saga of why on earth can't Luongo get a run in this team for us, because there just seems to be something every time. He's fallen ill. He's got a knock in the head. He's had international duty. And now this. He could easily miss 3 games through this. It's a real shame because he looks like a very useful player. I don't think either of us are saying that he went there trying to get a red. It's not like it's not a malicious tackle, but I think he's a guy that likes the kind of rough and tumble of the game in the same way Sam Hutchinson does, and he's made sure he's touched him. I don't think he's tried to foul him. I don't think he's tried to break his leg. He's not like Ryan Shaw crossing it. This is not, studs halfway up your shin with you, or on your weight-bearing leg. It's not that sort of a tackle. But in the parlance of the of Sunday League, he's tried to do him a little bit, and the ref's seen it in clear sight and punished him for it. So I don't think we can have too many complaints with that, really. It's a shame. It's early on in the game. You could argue that it's kind of ruined the rest of the game as a contest.
It has. It really has.
But it's self-inflicted. But just again disappointing. The most disheartening thing is that as I say, that means Luongo is probably not going to play for another 3 games, and being him, by the time he's eligible to play again, he'll probably be injured again. So
yeah,
we probably won't see him for a month.
Well, that's just really depressing now, Rich.
Sorry. It's distinctly disheartening. I mean, we were talking about the Fletcher, the striking situation, and that is I mean, this season, when we come to look back on it, has just been full of such weird things, and I do think Luongo's part of that, in that he seems so useful and helpful, and then has just had such a stuttering time with us. And then on top of that, obviously the season started with the weirdness of Bruce leaving, days before the season starts. It's just been a really odd season all told. And then it's almost natural that we've now lost our best player by miles for a good quarter of the season. Because why not? Because this is a weird year, and all of the weird stuff is happening, and none of it's good weird stuff. So why not have a huge chunk of time without Stephen Fletcher? So their second goal was really in a game filled with calamities of errors. That second goal was the most calamitous and error strewn.
It's really the cherry on this error Sunday, wasn't it? Really,
it was. And after the ball bounced off his face, Cameron Dawson might have the red cherry to top everything off. But the ball breaks out wide quite quickly. It's a good bit of passing and movement from Blackburn to isolate Fox. Reaches jogging back very slowly. Never ever gets back into position, but that means that people are sort of shuttling across to try and fill that space. And then in the middle of that, they have a decent shot, which we talked about. Dawson clipping, sort of getting a fingertip to. And then it meets a near post header, which was deftly put away, but unfortunately it happened to be Dawson's near post header, so no chance of saving it. We were preparing Ati Nuyu to come on at that point,
which I don't know. I really don't know. In a kind of inverse of how we talked about the game against Forest, where basically whoever the Forest manager is came out and said, you could sub the entire team. So
yeah,
in effect, then it became this nullifying thing of who, you shouldn't really sub anyone. But I didn't feel that that was a bad substitution, in my opinion.
Okay.
What would I have done? I don't know. I mean, it's pretty poor anyway.
Would you have been tempted to bring on Hutch to just kind of stabilise things in the middle?
That was my fault, especially after Luongo left the pitch. Maybe we should have done that sooner, to just stale it up and just get a handle on this game. But I mean, that's a real 2020 hindsight, let's be honest, in relation to this. But we needed to do something to try and grasp some control of this game.
Yeah, I think maybe you could have made both changes at once, potentially, because we were talking about one of the big problems was we just didn't have an out ball. So I suppose Nuyu on for Winall addresses that to an extent. But
I just think by going down to 10 men, you lose so many options for what you want to change when something isn't working. It's pretty bad. Well,
it's a punishment, isn't it? That's the thing at the end of the day. It's a good one. Did Ati have any impact at all, really, or you sort of said we never really got into their half even when he came on? So
that was it. It was it's this kind of null target man that we have in Nuyu. It just didn't really look like anything, I'll be honest.
Yeah. I think he needs very particular situations to shine, Nuyu, and that's where I think he falls down when he's a target man, because he's not really a target man. He's not very good at that bit, despite the fact he's built for it. He's not very good at it. Whereas somebody like Steve Howard, who we touched on, actually not that big of a guy, but played the game in such a kind of wholehearted way that he did make a career out of being a target man.
Mm.
You don't necessarily need the physicality. Well, you need some physicality, but you don't necessarily need to be, a 6 foot plus person, as long as you're good enough about putting yourself around. But they managed to, just sort of almost instantaneous in the start of the second half. Actually, sorry, did they score before the break?
They did. Yeah,
They did.
basically it
Okay.
was the 45th plus 1 minute. Yeah, stoppage time.
Right. Okay. Yes, weird seeing it listed as 46 because normally that's the first minute of the second half, isn't it? So they managed to get their third goal, which is just one of those we've all sat at Hillsborough and felt that experience of you kind of feel the wave rolling towards the goal and it seems unstoppable somehow. And they just sort of bundled through several challenges. All of the Wednesday team ends up back in the box to the point where when Holtby sort of poked it over the line, Adam Reach was somehow lying down in the goal, being the one trying to stop it on the line.
To look at some
shambles.
kind of odd positives.
Okay.
This isn't really a positive. We're very fluid in defensiveness. Probably so fluid. If we had this fluidity going forward, like players interchanging and players being in this position, and oh wow, look, Reach is up front and this player's holding back, and players are cycling and moving into space. If we had that going forward, then that would be something. That really would be something. But when you have that defensively, excuse me, it's bad. It's really bad. It's bad to see Reach defending stuff. It's bad to see Bannon getting moved out of position, really stretched into new positions defensively.
I like that. Defensive fluidity is a real... I could see that coming up as a who scored strength of Sheffield Wednesday.
It's really becoming a new part of this negative playmaking.
Nobody
really,
knows where they need to be. But then
we're really writing the book on this, Rich. I think we really are.
that
The
is an
Sheffield Wednesday
interesting
team pioneering in going backwards.
But do you know, actually, that is an interesting point because one of the things Monk is very vocal about is players winning their individual battles, and also quite often we do line up with players man marking in the defence. So you will see the right back in the left wing position, and you'll see Iorfa in particular following the front man all around the pitch. So I do think a team like Blackburn, who are clearly sort of set up with a midfield that's designed to kind of break out, whether that's a tactic that's going to do well against us more often than not, actually, because it's because we're trying to be so rigid and manage the game in that way, the way to break that is to overload us. So looking at their sort of average player positions, they've got both fullbacks in our half. That's their average position. They've got two holding guys who would have been Downing and Travis, but then everybody else is pretty far forward. So by having four players and then the wingers, the fullbacks push on, that's maybe their attempt to just overwhelm us with too many players to keep picking up.
Mm-hmm.
Our average player positions looks truly bizarre.
I think that was the thing looking at was someone pointed that out. I think it was maybe Peter Lohman on Twitter when I was looking at his feed today. But basically, yeah, it's so strange, this game, in just so many different ways.
We've got. I will put a picture in the show notes, but it's sort of Burner in the centre on his own, and then everybody else in a sort of semicircle round him. It's really, really very odd.
So do you think basically Burner's almost in the midst of some kind of act of dogging, and the rest of the players are just sitting around watching?
Of course, that's immediately where my mind went. Yes, Luke.
So some just awful, painful, negative sex act conducted by Julian Burner, and everyone else just stands around in their grotty tracksuits on a really cold, shivery January day and just watches. And that's about the effect of this game. There is a visual for this loss to Blackburn.
Oh dear.
The only thing let's look at some old kind of poor positives as well.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We had a long free kick that was possibly the Wednesday highlight, which didn't come to much, but that looked like our big attacking moment. And actually prior to that, we had there was a good bit actually about just after we conceded the first one, as before Luongo went off, but there was some kind of scrappy kind of interchange and we seem to be like doing what Blackburn were doing to us, which is basically like coming at us like an absolute steam train, and basically just finding ways to kind of feather the ball around us. Just kind of battle the ball through, which seemed to happen so many times from Blackburn's perspective. And we had a chance like that in the first half, which came to Murphy, and then he just put a very tame kind of shot directly at the Blackburn keeper.
Okay. Oh dear. So I like that those are the positives, and they've maybe made me even more upset than the.
But that's what we had to show for any like attacking purpose. That's what we had to show.
So you didn't like the first sub, Luke. What did you make of the next two?
Just before we get to that, I want to say the halftime statistics. I probably enjoyed the I Follow, Identikit kind of techno dance, kind of Television X 10 minutes preview music that was happening. We're going with a very kind of grotty, perverted theme, much like we did against the game against Brighton, but this is a bad one. And 37.5% possession at home to Blackburn Rovers.
Which, as we talked about, is not always a negative for us. Sometimes having less of the ball is actually better for us, and I would say particularly at home. But then there's not having the ball and looking terrifyingly dangerous on the break, and there's not having the ball and just laying back and thinking of England as Blackburn pummel your nethers.
But this is the problem. This is the problem. The identity of Gary Monk's Wednesday side is we are expecting. I think we always expect, and we always expect Wednesday to dominate at home and to dictate the play, and we didn't at all in the slightest, and it didn't even work for us.
No.
None of the counter-attacking formation was set up. None of it worked. None of that drive went. And it's interesting to look at, this is just an absolutely incredible, really unique game that, I don't think even in our, defensive fluidity, negative playmaking of Sheffield Wednesday that we've seen from this season, I don't think we will get to such a dizzying nadir as this game. And I really feel bad saying that because I feel like I'm going to put the mockers on this, and it's going to be a challenge for this Wednesday team to try to do. And I really don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it is we are in this point. This is a real, we talked about the M. Night Shyamalan films last week. This is a Gigli. This is how do you review an unreviewable game? Everything about this is just you can't look at it and analyze it with a straight face, with any sense of sanity. I'm in the process almost of writing stuff on the walls of my bedroom here. You can't really get your head around this. Saying that is in theory, seeing 37.5 possession with this counter-attacking Gary Monk side should play into our benefits, but it didn't. It didn't at all. And we were just poor and bad. And I also wonder how much of this today was we just let our heads drop. I think our heads dropped just massive.
I don't know how much is to be gained going over the rest of the goals, to be honest. I mean, it's all much of a muchness that this was terrible. It looked particularly, for me, watching the highlights, it looked particularly bad for Burner. He seemed to be directly at fault for almost every goal. Just sleeping on a man, letting somebody run through clear on goal and things like that, just again and again and again. It really was a bit of everyone had a nightmare, but it feels like watching the highlights, he had the nightmariest nightmare, which is maybe another reason why everybody was avoiding him. Do you think he makes that sort of, when he's dogging, do you think he makes that same sort of intense eye contact that he does on those celebration videos with the big grin?
I just think he's just in the middle, just giving a bunch of high fives to the rest of the players. He's inviting in the other players from the semicircle to give a little kind of few fist bumps and a few yeah. Does that while he gives the fist bumps and the high fives all around.
Ich liebe es.
He also just has a giant. He also just to go with a real terrible stereotype. He just has a giant stein of beer that he's just sloshing around while he does this as well. So he was.
Yes.
Burner was bad today. But I don't know who wasn't. So you were asking me before I kind of got diverted into this.
Sorry, yeah.
This whole this kind of this really fervent nightmare that we were running into. You were asking me about the double substitution at halftime.
Yes.
I hated the double substitution at halftime. Lee for Hutchinson, I agree with.
Yeah.
In a sense, I agree with the mentality of it. That the players that went off were bad. Well, no, like Lee was okay. Lee, unfortunately, it just is someone who's sacrificed in this case, as was Winall. And Urahide had a bit of a bad game. He was targeted, and it was really, really disappointing to see.
He's a good little player, Armstrong, isn't he? He won't have many days as tough as today. I wouldn't have thought Urahide.
So I don't know. But I just wanted to see something more positive. I would have almost thought. Who would I thought? Like, I mean, this definitely Hutchinson. Let's look back at all of the substitutions. I personally didn't see the point of Nuyu coming on at that stage. Maybe I would almost think that, I don't know, it's difficult. You just lose so much shape by making any change. To make anything that's attacking, you lose so much shape.
But then you're 3-0 down.
Then you're 3-0 down. So what does it matter for any shape? I get that completely. I would have almost taken Murphy off for Harris, I think. I would have taken Lee off for Hutchinson at that stage. I think I would have taken Lee off sooner for Hutchinson.
Right,
that would have been the first change I would have made to try and shore things up. When we're 1-0 down, we've lost Luongo, the game is still kind of live, even though we're very much second best in this game. That's what I would have done at that point. Then going to it, like let's say the game just panned out exactly as it did. Then I would think about, who can I take off? Maybe we just get rid of any width in the game completely. We didn't use any great width at all. Maybe you just drag Reach across, and then you have, I don't know. It's madness. It's all madness.
Yeah.
It is madness.
But it's a real shame when we're 3 goals down to see 2 basically defensive substitutions. It's not what you want to see as a fan.
No, it isn't. It really isn't. And to the fact that basically it's like, I almost felt prior to I was really hoping, really crossing all my fingers, that basically prior to that third Blackburn goal, hoping for a situation where maybe we could nick a goal before half-time, and then that changes a bit of the feel of things. Yeah.
But yeah, making your only offensive change sort of straight after the red card makes so little sense when
and remember we also
conceding after that rather than doing anything ourselves.
Remember we also have Rhodes and Harris on the bench.
Exactly.
We have Kadeem Harris. We didn't get to play the Rich Miller baller move substitution of bringing on Harris.
He's not done it twice running now. 2 games in the trot. He's not done the baller move of bringing on Harris. It's weird that he's suddenly fallen out of things. I mean, obviously we'll have a shake-up after this game, but it was strange that he's sort of fallen slightly out of favour anyway. But really weird not to bring him on today to just kind of chase things. I don't know. It's it's very frustrating. It's hard to look at a 5-0 and go, oh, if only. You know, it's so comprehensive a whopping that we've taken.
You know, the thing that was really funny was before the 4th goal, Dawson made a really good save from a chance before that, which led to the corner. And then I was literally just writing down, great save by Dawson before the corner, and then it's like, wow, then scored from the corner, and that's the last of my notes. Ladies and gentlemen, that I kept from this game.
They did manage to grab one more after that.
They did. They really did.
Which again Bernard does not cover himself in glory, although everybody is kind of upfield trying to make things happen.
The thing I'm really staggered about is we were so porous, I didn't even know it was a weakness that teams could just play it through us.
No.
So credit to Blackburn, they found a real new weakness to us, because we haven't shown that previously at all.
No. I mean, if you watch it with a completely neutral eye, the fun of football from a tactical point of view is, there's so many different ways to set up your 11 players, so many different things that you can do, and there's a bit of kind of cat and mouse going on at all times. And I wonder if Mowbray just kind of, in the same way that Monk seems to have Bielsa's number, I wonder if Mowbray's kind of got our number a little bit. I don't know that I did. It was a midweek game, the 2-1, so we didn't cover it in huge detail. But it does feel like if we are setting up to follow man for man around in the defence, then that may well leave gaps if the movement's good enough. And they kind of have a team that's full of players with good movement in that top end of things.
I was also wondering when I looked at the side of the pitch and saw Mowbray, because I can't believe he's still there.
Just because of age, or
well, I think that too as well. In a week where prior to the Palace game, was it Guardiola said about Roy Hodgson, who's 72, so 23 years, Guardiola's senior, basically him saying, like, you must have a really dull life at home, something along those lines. So, which the press made comments that basically Roy Hodgson's wife, Sheila, wouldn't be appreciative of that one.
No.
So he is, maybe he's a slightly older gentleman. But I also kind of looked at him and, like, I mean, I think prior to the play, he was pretty much almost on the way out. I think basically Wednesday saved his job beforehand.
The previous game.
Yes.
Maybe. I mean, they're right up there next to us now, so they're... And
hilariously, they had a goal difference of exactly 0 before this game, and now they're +5.
Now they're +5.
So they've gone to 5, and we've gone down from +13 to 8. It is just absolutely astonishing. But yeah, like, looking at him, I looked at it as like, he looked like a really haggard old fox that still had a way of cunning about him.
Yes.
He'd developed some great Rube Goldberg machine that he could still just about work to get into the garbage cans.
They've spent some money though, haven't they? like
they have.
He's not pulling miracles out of thin air. Like Gallagher's was a pricey signing, wasn't he? He was £10 million or something like that.
Something ridiculous. And they've also, hilariously, they brought on, what's his chops, Brereton?
Yes.
Signed from Forest for about £6 million.
Yeah.
And they've actually talked about him, like, saying that he needs to go out on loan. And he's one of your highest signings in recent times.
Yeah, strange.
It's just insane. So, yeah, I don't know. They're a very weird team, Blackburn Rovers. But again... And this is the funny thing, was that I think apparently Mowbray said about us previous to the game was Sheffield Wednesday, the type of team we should be beating.
Wow.
So they've just come out there with just absolutely just tossing back their gentleman's agreement back and forth with just sheer cockiness and arrogance.
Yeah.
And they've absolutely just done away with us on 2 occasions.
Yeah.
Today with a lot more panache and style than previously. Previously it felt like we were robbed a little. But you can't really disagree with it.
No.
Like, this was the thing, was that we were terrible today. We were absolutely awful, awful, awful. And Blackburn were really good. Blackburn were, like, astonishingly really good. And what happened? It was just insane.
I just don't know. Surely this must be just as frustrating for Gary Monk. Like, how do you account for doing what we did the last 2 weeks? So exactly the same team, pretty much, goes out and really just completely convincingly handles Brighton, a Premier League team. Granted, they made a few changes, but we made just as many changes. So, we comfortably dispatch with a Premier League team in the Cup. We then follow that up with maybe our best performance of the season away at Elland Road. Again, the same lineup. And then for the third game, you put those same players out on the pitch and they produce what happened today. The complacency, I just don't the mentality of our group of players is completely bizarre. It's so strange. And it seems like the moment there's a modicum of sort of an air of anything celebratory or any complacency, we seem to dine out on it to the extent where it just ruins anything good we had going. Because from finding a kind of, this is a midfield 3 that's kind of useful, it's got a bit of creativity, a bit of hard work, well, we're going to have to completely rip that up and start again. And, Murphy's looking dangerous on the right wing and being on the left wing's really helping reach out. Well, you have the game like today where neither of them are bothered helping out their fullback at all, leaving us completely exposed.
I genuinely think what we've gone with today, so this is the problem, like, it works well for us when we're away from home, this formation.
Yeah.
This setup, this mentality works perfectly for us. It's so good for us. At home, it doesn't work. So, in effect, do we need need another option? Because we've lost 3 games on the bounce at home, Rich. So again, like, do we need a plan B to the plan A? Which the plan A doesn't look very fully formed. But I think we need multiple plans. Like, the thing that really upset me today was that we didn't come out, we didn't look to actually score a goal or 2 or 3 or 4, however many. We didn't ever look like even scoring 1.
No, like I say though, this is you're right. I mean, having a plan A, plan B, but then today, from the sounds of it, it didn't sound like Blackburn played like an away team.
No.
So should it make a big difference? I do think Hillsborough is not helping. It is not helping in these moments where things are not so good. You could hear fans getting at Urigide after he'd made a mistake or 2. That doesn't help. But then it's always a chicken and egg thing with the crowd and levels of excitement. There needs to be something from the team to make us feel excited and involved. We can't start from scratch being all excited because we've been burned too many times. So yeah, it's very tricky, and we are playing with a decidedly limited hand when it comes to what we can do offensively, particularly at home. At home is the hardest thing. But the last 2 games has been teams sitting in and nicking a goal and then sitting in even harder. That's one problem. That's what we normally mean when we say, we need something at home. What Blackburn did today was not what those other teams have done. They railroaded us. They chased us all around the park. They scored 5 goals. They kept coming. At no point did they sit back and watch us play. That's what the frustration in those other games has been. We just couldn't. We didn't look dangerous and couldn't create anything. But today we just didn't. We weren't up for the fight. That's a different problem. It's a worse problem.
Yeah.
Just to make you all depressed again.
A little bit. I want
a rerun of the tears of last week, but this time these are sad tears.
Yeah. So another odd positive as well to add to the list. So when the Wednesday Twitter reported the final score and they did a picture.
Yes.
The whatever typeface they used for the 5 that Blackburn put, it looks really nice.
That's good.
I just had a few seconds and just my my ill sleep deprived haze that I'm coming through around. Just
appreciate it.
Could not believe. I just had a little look at it and I'm like, it looks nice. It's a nice curvy 5. Nice round number. Lovely.
Get to dust it off. Oh dear.
You also think as well, somebody did mention, I think it might be Peter Loban on Twitter, this is probably the worst Wednesday performance we've seen since maybe home to Burton Albion.
Yes, that was an absolute stinker, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, any other thoughts? I mean, obviously, it's not often we lose 5-0. I think this is the first time in like 18 years or something like that.
Yeah,
it's the
first time since we've lost at home 5-0 since I think 2001. We lost at home to Norwich 5-0. Right. So yeah, I
mean, it's an absolute sickener, and it's come against a team that. Just like Mowbray approaching Wednesday, it's the sort of team we should be beating. We've got a lot to do to pick ourselves up from here, haven't we?
I know, and I don't know. Also, the next difficult thing is we've got the next games on Friday. Yes. We've got the Friday night kickoff away at QPR for the FA Cup.
Who've just beaten Leeds themselves.
Leeds, and also I think just prior to in the Cup, they put 5 past Swansea, didn't they? I think.
Yeah, they did. In between times, they did get beat 3-1 by Brentford, but
I can just see that going pretty badly. I want to say.
Good. Looking ahead to next week, it could be just as bad again. And then we've got Wigan, who we normally do all right against, but again, we've also had
home or is that away?
The Wigan matches, they're both away matches, so 2 away matches in a row.
We could do okay against Wigan. But I'm not looking forward to that FA Cup game.
Ooh, yeah. It's the magic of the Cup. Anything could happen.
Here's hoping something changes our minds.
In what universe are we getting Connor Wickham now if he's playing football for Crystal Palace?
Ooh, I don't know. It could still be surprising, but I don't think it's going to be.
It feels like that's Uncater kind of gone. It feels like Wickham's going to be unlikely. It's really getting down to either a very, very expensive gamble to wade in with the big boys very slim pickings. Ugh. Anyway, right. So do you want to take a sort of? We're not going to do player rate every single player in the team, but do you want to pick out some maybe brighter glimmers amidst the nonsense, or particularly particular villains of the piece?
I want to say I feel sorry for Urgahide. I don't know where next for him. I'm really worrying that this is... I don't want to throw... Because here's the problem. It's not like we have great options. I'm not happy with Lees coming back into the picture.
But then we've just lost 5-0. I know he was on the pitch for...
I know, but I don't think right now I don't want to make very... I wouldn't, if I was Monk, be wanting to make very, very strong defensive changes. Even though we've lost 5-0. That might seem ridiculous. I really like the partnership. I like this back four.
Would you think about... Obviously, Dawson had a pretty big hand in 2 of the goals. Would you think about bringing Westwood back in, seeing how he's doing?
Well, who knows what's happening?
Game is a cup game.
Who knows what's happening in Westwood? Because, I mean, he's not in the starting 18 again. He
seems to be there training, though. I just don't think he likes the thought of being a sub very much.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, in a weird way, I'm saying I don't like these things. Monk will do what he wants. I wouldn't see... I don't want to, with the exception of Luongo, who's going to be suspended. They will appeal that. I don't think that's going to go anywhere.
No.
Like it's kind of sad. I don't want to throw... I don't want to throw the... Was it the baby out with the bathwater?
Yeah.
Don't want to do that.
No. Well, that's the thing. Is you could look at this performance and go, it's so bad, it's just a complete aberration. It's no use.
What you could do.
Picking over individuals and trying to single people out because everybody was so bad across the piece that how do you there was nobody stood out positively because it was all bad.
I don't think I feel bad for Dawson.
Yeah. But
I think he's had a pretty poor run of it. I think today he's not helped by the defence in front of him at all.
He's not, but then he's made in his own individual errors that have really not helped. Doesn't everybody, even in a bad performance, everybody has to do their own things well? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not good enough to just go, oh, it was bad.
Yeah.
So it's exposed, and if you're beaten by wonderful chances or unlucky sort of ricochets and things like that. Like if the first goal happened without his involvement at all, it just ends up being that volley and that goal that kind of bounces off Fox. Well, okay, Dawson is not to blame for that bit of that goal. The thing is, he's to blame for a big part of the blame of that chance happening because that was rubbish goalkeeping, palming it out straight to the man who just had a shot at you.
Yeah.
You put it over the bar, you catch it, you put it wide of the post. You absolutely do not double-handedly, tamely palm it straight back to the guy.
It was a bit like a volleyball assist, wasn't it?
It was. So that is, and I think I've got this. I've not gone back to kind of poured over the video to sort of find it, but it was very reminiscent of. I think he gave away another goal like that earlier this season. The same sort of thing where he's just kind of like covered his face with his hand and not really reacted particularly well to what came afterwards. Now I know it was a good finish and it took a deflection so that it's hard to make the save afterwards. Almost impossible probably to make the save. But maybe you can charge out and make yourself big or something. I don't know. But the first bit is not good goalkeeping. And then the own goal, once again, yes, it comes through a crowd of bodies. He will have seen it very late. Maybe it's harsh to criticise him on it. But the fact he got a touch on it means maybe he could have got more of a touch on it and it could have gone around the post. You're now talking about inches in terms of where his fingers actually made contact with the ball and just how strong his touch was, and if any of those things were a bit stronger or he was a bit down a bit quicker, it doesn't bounce back in his face. And he also didn't look particularly nimble after it bounced in his face, but I do appreciate that all happens very quickly. But it wouldn't be the first goalkeeper to kind of have one of those situations and then scramble back to stop it happening. So I'm not blaming Cameron Dawson. I'm not saying he had a terrible game, but I'm just sort of saying he didn't. cover himself in any glory either.
Yeah, I get that. So again, did you? But then maybe there's a blessing of having a cup game is that we can try a lot of players who are so fringes.
That's the thing, isn't it? It lets you do the big statement, clear house game. Actually, it gives you a bit of a free roll on it, and then if it doesn't work, you can go back to how things were for the next league game, because they're quite short succession as well, aren't they? Friday, Tuesday is a pretty, it's back to back, isn't it? So you could make a case for making the changes back as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much of an opportunity he makes of that. I'd certainly expect to see Harris start, having not played either of the last 2 games at all.
I think so. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to mention before we sort of wrap things up then?
No, it was all just pretty poor all around, I'll be honest. I don't think there's any great saviours. I was hoping Hutchinson would be a bit better than he was. He was okay.
But limited impact when he came on.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's hard, probably to be the one-man army when it's so, it's the situation is so dire by the time you come on the pitch. But I think by and large, we've got to just make this a one-off, in every single way. The team, their approach, how they set themselves up. It's just, this has got to be a thing that happened on one terrible day and doesn't happen again. That's the only way that we can move on, really, isn't it? We can't have this again. It's awful. And we can't have too many of these days. This is bad stuff. But it's a bad run at home. We need to do something to arrest that situation. But it does feel in some ways we're in that holding pattern until we have somebody else to add to the mix going forward, because if this is all we've got, it's going to be a real limit to what Monk can manage to squeeze out of them, because
it's some real old Monka Hubbard. He goes to the cupboard and the cupboard is very much bare.
Old Monka Hubbard, it's beautiful. And on that wonderful note, we will say cheerio for today. A bad day at the office all round. We'll let Paulie Luke get back to his honey and lemon and convalescing under his duvet covers. And let's just, the main image of today, I think, that we need to walk away and think about during the week is Jeremy Burner working away at some young lass in a car park. So I'll say cheerio, Luke. On that note.
Have a good one, Rich. See ya. Bye-bye.